Have you ever grabbed leftovers from the fridge, tossed them in the microwave, and thought you were making a quick, healthy choice? Well, what if I told you that reheating certain foods might secretly harm your body, increasing your risk of cancer, digestive problems, and even brain damage? In today's video, we're diving deep into 5 everyday foods that doctors and nutrition experts warn you should never reheat because they can actually turn toxic. These are foods many of us think are healthy staples, but science shows reheating them could create harmful compounds linked to serious long-term health risks. Stick around, because we're not just revealing which foods to avoid, but also the surprising science-backed reasons why, so you can make smarter choices in the kitchen, protect your health, and feel your very best every single day. Before we jump in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Elderly Health Tips. And now, let's explore the first food that I advise you not to reheat: spinach. Look, I'm a big fan of spinach. It's truly one of nature's best multivitamins, loaded with vitamin A for your vision, vitamin C for immunity, vitamin K for your bones, plus iron and powerful antioxidants like lutein. A single cup of cooked spinach packs around 245% of your daily vitamin K needs and nearly 20% of your iron. It's a nutritional powerhouse, no doubt about it. But here's the problem. Spinach naturally contains nitrates. And while nitrates themselves aren't necessarily bad, they're found in lots of vegetables like beets and lettuce. Things change when we cook spinach, cool it down, and then reheat it. The heat and time give bacteria a chance to convert nitrates into nitrites. And then, when heated again, nitrites can combine with amines in food proteins to form nitrosamines. Now, why does that matter? Because nitrosamines are known carcinogens. According to the National Cancer Institute, several nitrosamines are classified as probable human carcinogens, linked to higher rates of stomach and colorectal cancers. In fact, a study published in the International Journal of Cancer, 2015, found that people with high dietary nitrosamine intake had up to a 34% increased risk of gastric cancer compared to those with lower intake. And the risks don't stop at cancer. Emerging research, including a 2020 review in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, suggests nitrosamines may contribute to neurodegeneration, possibly raising risks for conditions like Alzheimer's disease or cognitive decline. Why? Because nitrosamines may cause oxidative stress and damage the blood-brain barrier, both big concerns as we age. A patient of mine, Mrs. Donna Harris, 68, from Arizona, told me how she's trying to eat healthier. She often makes a big batch of sauteed spinach for the week, keeps it in the fridge, and reheats it in the microwave each day for her lunch wraps. About 6 months ago, she started experiencing chronic bloating and occasional memory lapses. Now, we're still running tests, and of course, many factors could be at play, but these habits with reheated spinach definitely raise some red flags for me as her doctor. The CDC notes that aging reduces liver and kidney efficiency, which can slow the removal of harmful compounds from the body. Plus, our DNA repair mechanisms become less effective over time. This means even low-level exposure to harmful chemicals like nitrosamines can build up and do more damage in older adults than in younger folks. But it's not just seniors who should care. The American Institute for Cancer Research recommends that people in midlife, say their 40s and 50s, start paying closer attention to cumulative dietary risks to avoid carrying those risks into older age. And here's a striking stat from the FDA. They estimate that up to 20% of nitrite exposure in the US diet comes from vegetable sources, including reheated leafy greens. So yes, even healthy food can become risky under the wrong conditions. So what can you actually do about it? First, eat spinach fresh whenever you can. Toss it into salads, smoothies, or sandwiches raw. If you cook it, try to eat it right away. If you have leftovers, store them in the fridge no longer than 24 hours, and preferably eat them cold instead of reheating. If you must reheat spinach, use gentle heat on the stovetop, not the microwave. Keep the temperature low and stir often. Only reheat once, don't keep heating it multiple times. And now, Let's look at the second food I want you to pay attention to. Potatoes. Here's something you might not expect. That innocent-looking baked potato from last night's dinner could actually become a ticking time bomb in your fridge, carrying one of the most dangerous toxins known to science. And you'd never even smell it coming. Let's start with the basics. I love potatoes. They're a true American staple, delicious, versatile, and budget-friendly. Whether mashed, baked, roasted, or boiled, potatoes show up on dinner tables all over this country every single day. Nutritionally, they're loaded with potassium. One medium potato has more potassium than a banana, about 620 milligrams. They're also a good source of vitamin C, vitamin B6, and fiber when you keep the skin on. And there's another cool fact. When potatoes cool down after cooking, their starch partly changes into what scientists call resistant starch. That type of starch acts like fiber in your gut. It feeds the good bacteria in your intestines, helping with digestion, blood sugar control, and even weight management. A 2015 study in the Journal of Functional Foods found that resistant starch may lower post-meal blood sugar spikes by up to 30 to 40%. So yes, cold potatoes can actually be good for you in moderation. But, and this is a big but only if they're stored and handled safely. Here's where things go wrong. When cooked potatoes are left sitting at room temperature, especially when wrapped tightly in aluminum foil, it creates a perfect environment for the growth of Clostridium botulinum. Why foil? Because wrapping potatoes in foil cuts off oxygen, and low oxygen conditions are exactly what these bacteria love. The bacteria produce a toxin called botulinum toxin, which is one of the most powerful neurotoxins on Earth. Just how dangerous is it? According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, as little as a few billionths of a gram of botulinum toxin can be fatal for an adult human. The World Health Organization, WHO, calls botulinum toxin the most toxic substance known to humankind on a per-weight basis. The CDC reports an average of about 145 cases of botulism per year in the US, and roughly 15% are foodborne. While that may sound rare, foodborne cases can happen from improperly stored potatoes. Symptoms of botulism are terrifying. The toxin attacks the nervous system, blocking signals from your nerves to your muscles. It can start with mild symptoms like nausea and vomiting, dry mouth, blurred or double vision. But within hours, it can lead to muscle paralysis, trouble breathing, and even death if not treated immediately. The National Institutes of Health, NIH, states that botulinum toxin can cause respiratory failure, requiring weeks or even months of hospital care and mechanical ventilation. As we age, our immune systems and digestive systems slow down. The National Institute on Aging, NIA, reports that older adults are more vulnerable to foodborne illness because they produce less stomach acid to kill harmful bacteria. And any toxin that makes it into the bloodstream is more damaging in older bodies, which heal more slowly and are more prone to severe complications. So, what can you do to stay safe? Here's my advice as a doctor. Cook only what you plan to eat. Leftovers are fine, but be smart. If you have leftover potatoes, remove them from foil immediately and refrigerate them within 2 hours of cooking. Store leftovers in shallow containers so they cool quickly. The FDA recommends keeping your fridge at or below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 degrees Celsius. When reheating potatoes, use an oven or stovetop to heat them all the way through to at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit, 74 degrees Celsius. Don't rely on a quick zap in the microwave, which can leave cold spots where bacteria survive. And this is crucial, never reheat potatoes more than once. Let's move on to the third food, mushrooms. First, let's talk about why mushrooms are so popular. Mushrooms aren't just tasty, they're packed with nutrition. They're low in calories, fat-free, and a great source of B vitamins like riboflavin, niacin, and pantothenic acid, all of which help keep our nerves healthy and our metabolism running smoothly. 1 cup of raw white mushrooms has just 15 calories, but delivers about 15% of your daily selenium. a mineral that helps protect your cells from damage. And mushrooms are one of the few plant-based sources of ergothioneine, a unique antioxidant that scientists believe may help protect against chronic diseases. A large study published in the Journal of Nutrition in 2021 showed that people who ate at least 18 grams of mushrooms daily had a 45% lower risk of developing cancer compared to those who didn't eat mushrooms at all. But here's where the plot thickens. Mushrooms are very heat sensitive. When you cook mushrooms, their delicate proteins and enzymes start to break down. That's normal and safe during the first cooking. But if you cool them down, stick them in the fridge, and then reheat them later, those proteins degrade further, making mushrooms tougher to digest. The result? Bloating, gas, and stomach discomfort. This problem is especially common in older adults. As we age, our digestive systems slow down. The National Institute on Aging, NIA, explains that our stomachs produce less acid, making it harder to break down certain proteins. That's why older adults often report more digestive issues after eating reheated mushrooms compared to younger folks. I'll share an example from my practice. One of my patients, Mr. Harold Jennings, 68, from Wisconsin, loves mushroom risotto. He used to make a big pot on Sunday and warm up leftovers all week. He started noticing chronic bloating and sometimes even mild nausea. He thought it was the rice. But when we looked deeper, we realized it was likely the reheated mushrooms causing the trouble. Once he switched to cooking smaller batches and eating mushrooms fresh or cold, his symptoms improved significantly. And there's another piece many people don't know. Reheating mushrooms can also change their fats. While mushrooms are naturally low in fat, many recipes use oils or butter during cooking. When reheated, these fats can oxidize, forming compounds called lipid peroxides. These compounds contribute to oxidative stress in the body, which damages cells, accelerates aging, and has been linked to diseases like heart disease and dementia. A 2019 review in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience found that people with higher oxidative stress levels were up to 42% more likely to develop cognitive decline as they aged. It might sound dramatic, but even small repeated exposures to oxidized fats from reheated foods add up over time. Older adults are particularly vulnerable because the body's natural antioxidant defenses like glutathione decrease with age. That's why reheating mushrooms might pose bigger risks for seniors than for younger folks. Now let's look at food safety. Unlike meat or fish, mushrooms themselves don't commonly harbor dangerous bacteria like salmonella or listeria. However, once cooked, mushrooms become a perfect breeding ground for bacteria if they're left sitting out too long. The FDA recommends refrigerating cooked food within 2 hours to prevent bacterial growth. And remember, even in the fridge, bacteria can still multiply, just more slowly. Let's talk about the fourth food, which I think you also eat quite often: chicken. Let's start with why chicken is so beloved across America. Chicken is practically the king of proteins here in the States. It's lean, relatively cheap, and super versatile. According to the USDA, Americans eat nearly 100 pounds of chicken per person each year. That's more than beef, pork, or any other meat. A 3-ounce serving of cooked skinless chicken breast has about 26 grams of protein, roughly half your daily protein needs if you're older, plus important nutrients like niacin, selenium, phosphorus, and B vitamins. The National Institutes of Health, NIH, highlights chicken as an excellent choice for maintaining muscle mass, as we age crucial for preventing frailty and falls. But there's a side of chicken most people don't know. When we reheat chicken, a couple of things happen that can cause trouble. First, the proteins in chicken, mainly actin and myosin, which unravel and become tender during the initial cooking, tighten up even further when heated a second time. This makes the meat tougher and harder to digest. Older adults feel this even more. The National Institute on Aging, NIA, explains that as we age, our stomachs produce less acid and digestive enzymes. That means older adults often struggle to break down complex proteins, and reheated chicken can leave them with bloating, indigestion, or a heavy feeling in their stomach. But digestion isn't the only concern. Reheating chicken can also increase levels of harmful compounds called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. AGEs form when proteins or fats react with sugars under heat, especially high or repeated heat. Here's why that matters. The American Diabetes Association warns that excess AGEs contribute to chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, and higher risks of type 2 diabetes. A 2018 paper in Nutrients found that people with the highest dietary AGE intake had up to a 35% higher risk of heart disease compared to those who consumed fewer AGEs. The National Institute on Aging has linked AGEs to accelerated brain aging and higher risk of Alzheimer's and other dementias. This is why doctors sometimes call chronic inflammation the silent killer. It slowly damages tissues and organs over time, often without obvious symptoms until it's serious. So while leftover chicken might seem harmless, regularly eating reheated meat could be adding tiny bits of risk to your heart, your brain, and your long-term health. And there's another safety piece people overlook. Improper reheating of chicken can also lead to foodborne illnesses. The CDC reports that poultry, especially chicken, is the leading cause of foodborne illness outbreaks linked to meat. From 2017 to 2021, chicken was involved in over 18% of hospitalizations from foodborne diseases in the United States. Why? Because bacteria like Campylobacter and Salmonella can survive if chicken isn't reheated to at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit, 74 degrees Celsius. Microwaves, unfortunately, often heat food unevenly, leaving cold spots where bacteria can hide and survive. So, how can you safely enjoy chicken and protect your health? Here's what I tell my patients. Cook only what you'll eat fresh. If you have leftovers, store chicken in a sealed glass container and keep it refrigerated below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 degrees Celsius. Eat leftover chicken cold in salads, wraps, or sandwiches whenever possible. If you must reheat, do it slowly and evenly on the stovetop, not just a quick microwave zap. Make sure the center reaches 165 degrees Fahrenheit, 74 degrees Celsius. Never reheat chicken multiple times. Once is the limit. The fifth food, eggs. Let me share something that might shock you. Those leftover eggs sitting in your fridge, reheating them might quietly raise your risk of heart disease, memory loss, and chronic inflammation, especially as you get older. And most folks have no idea it's happening. Let's start with why eggs are so popular and why they deserve a spot on your plate. Eggs are a nutritional powerhouse. One large egg contains about 6 grams of high-quality protein, roughly 5 grams of healthy fats, and essential vitamins like B2, riboflavin, B12, and selenium. They're also one of the best dietary sources of choline, a nutrient crucial for brain function and muscle movement. According to the National Institutes of Health, NIH, over 90% of Americans don't get enough choline in their diets. A single egg provides about 147 milligrams of choline, roughly 27% of the recommended daily intake. That's why eggs are often praised for supporting memory, mood, and cognitive health. But, and here's where things get tricky, the way we handle eggs can change all that goodness. When we cook eggs the first time, the heat gently unravels their proteins, creating that soft or fluffy texture we love. But when you cool eggs, store them, and reheat them again, especially at high heat or in the microwave, those proteins tighten up even more. That's why reheated eggs can turn rubbery, chewy, and far less appetizing. This isn't just a matter of texture. For older adults, tougher proteins are harder to digest. The National Institute on Aging, NIA, explains that after age 60, stomach acid levels drop and enzyme production slows down. That makes it more difficult to break down complex proteins, leading to bloating, gas, and indigestion. But there's another layer to the story, and it's even more concerning. Cholesterol in egg yolks can become oxidized when eggs are reheated, creating compounds called oxysterols. Studies in journals like the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition and Nutrients have shown that oxysterols are linked to chronic inflammation, arterial plaque buildup, and brain aging. Why does this matter so much? The American Heart Association warns that chronic inflammation is a major driver of atherosclerosis, which can lead to heart attacks and strokes. A 2017 study in neurobiology of aging found that elevated levels of oxysterols in the blood were associated with a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease and other cognitive impairments. The NIH reports that as we age, our natural defenses against oxidative stress decline. That makes seniors far more vulnerable to damage from compounds like oxysterols. A 2021 meta-analysis in Nutrients estimated that diets high in oxidized cholesterol were associated with a 23 to 27% increased risk of cardiovascular disease. Another study in Frontiers in Nutrition found that older adults who consumed more oxidized cholesterol showed greater markers of systemic inflammation, which is linked to conditions like arthritis, diabetes, and even certain cancers. Here's the kicker. While a single reheated egg isn't going to harm you instantly, regularly consuming reheated eggs over months and years could contribute to chronic low-level inflammation, the so-called silent killer. This silent inflammation slowly damages blood vessels, nerves, and organs, raising risks for heart disease, diabetes, and cognitive decline. And let's not forget food safety. Eggs are one of the top sources of foodborne illness in the U.S. The CDC reports that between 2017 and 2021, eggs were implicated in approximately 8% of salmonella outbreaks related to food. Why? Because bacteria can multiply quickly if eggs are left at unsafe temperatures, and reheating might not kill bacteria if the eggs aren't heated evenly all the way through. Microwaves are particularly problematic because they create hot and cold spots, leaving pockets where bacteria can survive. So, how can you enjoy eggs safely and still keep them healthy? Here's what I advise my patients. Cook only what you plan to eat fresh. If you do have leftovers, store cooked eggs in a sealed glass container and keep them in the fridge at or below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 degrees Celsius. Eat leftover eggs cold whenever possible. Toss them into salads, wraps, or grain bowls. If you must reheat eggs, do it gently on the stovetop over low heat, stirring frequently. Avoid blasting them in the microwave if you can, and never reheat eggs more than once. So friends, whether it's reheated spinach turning into hidden carcinogens, potatoes risking deadly toxins, mushrooms becoming hard to digest and linked to oxidative stress, chicken forming inflammation-triggering compounds, or eggs creating harmful oxysterols, the way we handle our food truly matters, especially as we age. It's not about fear, it's about knowledge and smart choices. So let's cook smaller portions, store our leftovers safely, and think twice before hitting that microwave button. Because protecting your health and your loved one's health starts right in your own kitchen. If today's video opened your eyes, please like, share, and subscribe to Elderly Health Tips. Together, we can stay informed, stay healthy, and enjoy every meal to the fullest, one smart bite at a time.